student loan forgiveness here, organized by the ISTA and put on by some of our NEA friends here. I am Doug Taylor, a fifth grade teacher from New Albany, Indiana, and I am proud and grateful to serve as your ISTA Vice President this year. We'll begin with a land acknowledgement. Down here in New Albany, we acknowledge that we meet on the traditional lands served by the Hopewell and Adena cultures, who developed systems of trade across the entire region. More recently served by the Osage, Shawnee, and Miami people, who today have their tribal centers located in Oklahoma. We honor America's first people and all elders past, present, and emerging, and are called on to learn and share what we learn about the tribal history, culture, and contributions that have been suppressed in telling the story of America. As your Vice President, I see and am aware of the good work going on across the state. Members, as we work to care for and prepare our kids, work that builds up our colleagues, and the organizing and coalition building that locals are doing around the state to help build success as we lead into the future. So before we start the program, just one last thing is to thank our ISDA staffers and our NEA staff who helped get this organized for all of us tonight. We have three NEA staffers here that are going to work with us, and I got Ronnie Lau, and he is part of the NEA government relations team as a federal lobbyist, as well as campaigns and advocacy programs. Sophia Midas is a law fellow with NEA and has experience in legal work in a number of capacities related to education. And Jeff Burrett is staff counsel for NEA and has worked in several positions in labor relations and legal aid. And so with that being said, I thank you all for being here tonight, and I hand it off to Ronnie, Sophia, and Jeff. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Vice President Taylor. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Ronnie Lau, and I am a federal lobbyist with the National Education Association. And so we're really excited to do this webinar with ISTA and talk about public service loan forgiveness. And hopefully you guys get some good news out of this and get some good takeaways, and hopefully we'll get some of your debt forgiven. So before we start, I wanted to cover a couple of housekeeping issues. First and foremost, we have disabled the chat function because our primary and easiest way about how we can navigate and resolve your questions is actually through the Q&A function here on Zoom. So if you do have any questions, we do ask you to hold it all the way to the end. We do have a designated portion in this webinar where we will spend probably roughly 15 to 20 minutes answering live questions, as many as we can before we conclude the hour. But we have a lot of content, and more than likely our content in our webinar will have the answers to many of the questions that you have. So we do ask you to hold them all the way to the end. And if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A function. And if we don't get to it, we will work with our ISTA friends to get any unlogged questions, and we will look to answer those after the fact and get those sent out to you via email. But then also here is something that we wanted to touch base on. We have a SMS text function that is actually a really useful tool that will lead you to a short survey to see if you qualify for public service loan forgiveness or not. So simply, you just go to 48744, you text to that number, student debt in one word, and then that will send you a link to the survey on the left side of the screen that you see there with that thumbnail. And then again, like I said, this is a great, easy, quick tool just to see if you qualify and see where you might land on public service loan forgiveness. More than likely, it will say, yes, you do, or you likely do. So this is just a short thing that you could do. And if you are joining us and you're not an ISTA or NEA member, we do hope that you join us in our union. A lot of these changes and the types of influences that we make to get these policies advanced is due to our members of our union. And so if you're not a member of the NEA or ISTA, we do hope you consider joining us today by heading to nea.org/join. So we'll start off with a little bit of a history lesson. So what is public service loan forgiveness, or PSLF for short? This was a program established in 2007, and the promise of PSLF was really simple. You work in public service for at least 10 years, like a profession like education and public education or higher education, and you make 120 on-time student loan payments. After you fulfill both of those criteria, the U.S. Department of Education will forgive the remaining balance of your federal student loans. But I think most folks know this. Unfortunately, until this most recent waiver that the Biden administration established, the program had denied over 90% of applicants. So who is exactly eligible for PSLF? To put it simply, you must be employed full-time, which is defined as 30 hours or more per week by a public service employer. And public service employer is a very broad term, but the easiest way to put it is that it includes all public school districts and public and nonprofit higher education institutions. Thus, by this definition, this includes all types of educators. This includes teachers, education support professionals, specialized instructional support personnel, otherwise known as SIS, and also higher education faculty, including adjunct and contingent. And this is really key because we get questions like this all the time where it's like, I'm not sure if I qualify for PSLF because I'm an ESP or I'm a custodial worker. It's not about what you do for your school or your school district. It's about who you work for and who is your employer. And so more than 99%, I think, of our members are eligible for public service loan forgiveness because they are employed by a public school district or by a higher education institution. So as I mentioned earlier, public service loan forgiveness wasn't so simple in terms of the folks that applied. A lot of folks got denied, and under the regular rules of where we were prior, a borrower had to go through numerous different types of hurdles to get public service loan forgiveness. It wasn't as simple as those two underlying promises that we had mentioned earlier. You must have the right type of federal loan. Only loans called federal direct loans qualify for forgiveness. You also have to have the right servicer. The loans must be serviced by the student loan servicer that is managing public service loan forgiveness at the time of requesting forgiveness. You also have to be in the right repayment plan. Only income-driven repayment plans accrue towards the 120 payments that I mentioned earlier. And you also must work full-time, as I mentioned. You must work 30 hours more per week. And this is more so an issue that has attributed to many of our adjunct and contingent faculty in higher education that failed to qualify for PSLF. And then you also have to make sure that those 120 payments are on-time payments to your student loans. They cannot be late payments, and they also cannot be payments that are off by a couple of cents. But there's a key that none of these payments have to be consecutive. So it could be accrued over time. So if you miss a payment, that's okay, because it's about the accumulation of 120 payments over time. So as you can imagine, the promise wasn't so simple, and there's many different things that are around twists and turns that just make it incredibly difficult for our NEA members and our educators from accessing PSLF. And so this is another summary. Again, we had folks that had the wrong type of loan. We had folks that were not repaying the right type of payment plan, folks that probably made 120 payments for 10 years that had no idea, maybe misled and told that they were doing all the right things. And then when they came up to apply, they didn't get public service loan forgiveness because they told that they weren't making any right type of payments. And again, we talked a little bit about the late and partial payments as well. And then here's where NEA and all of our affiliates really went into power and into the great advocacy work that we did on this. So nearly 50,000 NEA members sent personalized messages to the education department in 2021, and nearly 170,000 since 2020. We kept PSLF in the news for months by this rate. We went to do things with press releases, op-eds, letters to the editor, so many different things that was so great that we inspired this change for public service loan forgiveness. And these are just a bit of snippets about how really NEA members and educators made this change happen. And we put a really amazing pro-public education administration in the White House that is doing this change in response to some of the things that our educators are so prioritizing around. So again, the Biden administration listened. So in October 2021, the administration announced it was temporarily waiving a lot of those many technical requirements that I had mentioned earlier. I'm not going to go too far into this, but I'll try to summarize this as best as possible. So there are folks that have different types of federal student loans called FFEL loans, or federal family education loans, or Perkins loans. As I mentioned, those aren't direct loans. Only direct loans qualify for forgiveness. And so those loans previously ineligible could not be accrued payments towards PSLF. And then now with these changes from the waiver, if you had previous payments on those types of loans, they will be eligible towards that 120. Payments on a non-income driven repayment plan, those will be counted now towards the 120. Late payments will also now be credited. And then also there are some folks who may have consolidated their federal student loans. Because you have a FFEL loan or Perkins loan, there is a way for you to consolidate your student loans into a direct loan. But once you consolidate previously, you would actually lose all the progress of any qualifying payments. And some folks were misled to even consolidate their direct loans. They may have been doing all the right things with their direct loans and been misled and told to consolidate. And then they started back at zero at that clock as soon as they consolidated. But any payments made prior to consolidation will also be eligible towards the 120 as well. And then some folks here may have also received loan forgiveness from a program called Teacher Loan Forgiveness, or TLF. You would be, those 5 years used for teacher loan forgiveness would now also qualify for PSLF. There's a rule beforehand that you could not double dip in both programs, and any service that you use for teacher loan forgiveness could not also be used for public service loan forgiveness. But the waiver surpasses that, and also you'll be able to use those 5 years, any payments that you made in that 5 years that you used to receive teacher loan forgiveness as well. But the key thing of this is that the changes for PSLF will only exist until October 31st of this year, 2022. It's October 3rd right now, so we're less than a month away from that deadline. So it's really important that folks apply for this right this way. And we'll definitely walk folks through about how we can do that. And if you don't believe us about how it's working, just a comparison of numbers. Before the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Limited Waiver, only 16,000 borrowers had received loan forgiveness. So I mentioned the program existed starting in 2007. Then, of course, 10 years forward, 2017 was the first set of borrowers that tried to apply. So from about 2017 to 2021, when the waiver was implemented, we only had 16,000 folks that actually had loan forgiveness because of PSLF. But then as of August of this year, 175,000 borrowers, and this includes thousands of educators, have received more than $10 billion in forgiveness because of the limited waiver. We have almost times 20 the amount of folks that have qualified for this program, which is amazing. And the number is going to keep going up. And it's so essential that we make sure we spread this word and get folks to apply for it while we have the chance with this. And then the other thing that I'll mention is that an additional 1 million borrowers have also received additional credit towards forgiveness, accruing to roughly around a year's worth of progress, essentially towards PSLF, because of things that they weren't doing correctly previously. Even if you're not going to receive PSLF immediately, it's important for you to apply for PSLF now so that you can receive credit for anything that may have not counted in the past. And so this allows you to make sure that you get PSLF on time, and this is a big benefit to you also as well. So what exactly do folks have to do to receive PSLF? The first step is going to apply to just about everybody. You will go to studentaid.gov/PSLF, and you'll log into your Federal Student Aid ID or FSA ID. And you may need to create one if you don't have one already. And you want to make sure your contact information is up to date. If there is any news around public service loan forgiveness, anything around your application status, this contact information listed right there is how they're going to get in touch with you. That is one of the most important things that you'll have to do. And I'll also mention that your FSA ID is not the same as your login to your student loan servicer. Every individual with your student loans has a student loan servicer that is servicing your loans and managing your repayment. But as that is not the same as the FSA portal. So making sure that those are two distinct items, and this is to log in directly to the Department of Education. Now, here's where we divvy off a little bit. And you'll find all this out, and we'll get into some Q&As about this. But there are different types of student loans, as I mentioned earlier. So if you have a direct loan and have applied for PSLF, you should receive automatic forgiveness, hopefully in the coming months, or at least progress to your credit closer towards the 120 needed, especially if you have, as I mentioned, if you don't have any payments that previously did not count under the previous rules. If you have a direct loan and have not applied for PSLF, again, you need to apply for PSLF immediately before October 31st. And you need to do so even if you haven't reached 120 payments or 10 years of service, because this will make sure that you're on track. And of course, you'll get credit to anything that you've done previously that did not qualify. If you have a FFEL or a Perkins loan, you must first consolidate into a direct loan, and then you apply for public service loan forgiveness before the waiver ends on October 31st. Again, as I mentioned, only direct loans have the ability to get discharged by public service loan forgiveness. So those types of loans of FFEL and Perkins, you have to consolidate them into a direct loan. But you actually can apply for public service loan forgiveness while your consolidation application is pending. So you don't have to wait for that to complete. Just make sure you consolidate, do that application, and then go apply for PSLF afterwards. Now, you might be asking, how do you apply for PSLF? So to begin the application itself, you have to visit studentaid.gov/PSLF, same link as earlier, and you'll use the Department of Education's PSLF help tool. It's kind of like a TurboTax tool where you will enter a bunch of information in, and then it will spit you out a form that's pre-filled based on the information you provided. And then you'll get it signed by your employer to verify your employment. And then you'll fax it, you can email it, or upload it online to submit it to the servicer. and that's how you apply for public service loan forgiveness. But we also recognize that every NEA member has a different situation with their finances, with their student loans, and may have really unique questions. Again, we'll try the best to answer as many as we can, but every NEA member can get free help for applying for public service loan forgiveness or just general assistance with their student loans by going to the member benefits page for NEA, which is neamb.com/savvy. And that leads us to our student debt navigator, which is a really, really unique tool that we've partnered with the company called Savvy to produce this, to have an easier time for folks to apply for public service loan forgiveness. And again, to have that one-on-one support if you need it at any point. And if you still don't believe us, we have success stories that we've provided for a lot of folks that have gotten into this. But I'll pass it on to my colleague, Jeff, who will go over these.
Thanks a lot, Ronnie. Yeah, I have the pleasure to begin this evening by talking about a few just terrific success stories. And we bring these up for a very intentional reason, and that is that we want each of you on this call who are interested in PSLF to be one of these success stories, either soon, hopefully, once you get your application in, or if you apply before the waiver, get a little boost along with 1 million other people, as Ronnie described, who are that much closer to PSLF now. Maybe it'll take you, maybe you're not quite there, but we hope to get you down the road so that you'll be one of these success stories. And I want to be a little bit more detailed about this first success story involving one of our members in Pennsylvania named Amanda McNelly. We bring up this story because I think it brings together a lot of the things that Ronnie has been talking about, including NEA's advocacy and the improvements under the Biden administration. Amanda McNelly, years ago, at the advice of a principal, applied for a teacher loan forgiveness, which Ronnie referenced, and it came through, and she had $5,000 forgiven. But then she and her husband realized something when the next time they logged on to her FSA account, and that was that they realized that her PSLF count had decreased. Because the 5 years of working for a Title I school that was used for her to qualify for teacher loan forgiveness could not be double counted. Those 5 years did not then count towards PSLF. This was shocking and very disheartening because although $5,000 was welcome relief, Ms. McNelly still had a mountain of student debt that she was worried about paying off, or working towards paying off, or working towards forgiveness rather. And to be set back by 5 years was just, it was devastating. She reached out to NEA. NEA, we engaged in all of our advocacy efforts that Ronnie summarized. Then we had obviously a sea change when President Biden was elected and came into office. NEA jumped to action on this and many other issues. We wrote a letter specifically to those, as you can see here on the letter, Mr. Cordray and Mr. Caval, higher ups at the Department of Ed, and we raised this issue where teachers could receive a small amount of forgiveness, and that could impact their ability to receive complete forgiveness under PSLF. And the administration listened. They decided that under the waiver, this double benefit provision, as we think of it, that prohibited Ms. McNally from using those 5 years towards PSLF, that was waived under the temporary waiver. And shortly thereafter, Ms. McNally received the life-altering news that over the remainder of her student debt balance, approximately $80,000 was forgiven. So again, this was kind of just brings into harmony the NEA's advocacy efforts, the fact that we now have an administration that listened, that cares about student borrowers and wants to make it more affordable to achieve an education. And these things were brought together to benefit Ms. McNelly and her family. We have a few additional success stories here. In the interest of time and in order to get to your questions, I'll just quickly, address these different scenarios in which people come in and come to NEA for assistance and have worked towards PSLF. We have Greg from Hazleton, Pennsylvania. He did it right from the beginning. He studied up on the issue. He consolidated his loans 10 years ago. He entered a repayment plan, and 10 years later, after which by that point, he had 2 small kids, he had a mortgage, and he received the promise of debt forgiveness that was life-altering. And he has done some work advocating with NEA as we move forward and try to make further improvements to debt crisis or student debt crisis. We have another individual here, Jamie Walker-Salas from Iowa, a similar story, right? Frustration mounts over the years. There's this promise that's been made by Congress, and it just never seems like it always feels like it's a little out of reach for people, but eventually it did come through for Ms. Walker-Salas, as it did for Greg and as it did for Amanda McNally, and again, as we hope that it will for all of you. So I hope this buoys your spirits a bit and realize it and helps you see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and if there's anything we can do to help you reach that, we're here for you. So we also wanted to touch for a moment, of course, on President Biden's student debt cancellation plan, his debt relief plan that was announced in August. And as many or most of you likely know by now, under this program, all eligible borrowers who all holders of federal student loans will receive $10,000 in cancellation, provided they meet the income guidelines that are listed here: $125,000 annual income for individuals, or $250,000 for married couples. That is for tax year 2020 or 2021. So if you were under that limit for either one of those years, you should qualify for the $10,000 in cancellation for your federal student debt. And if you received a Pell Grant as an undergrad, regardless of how much, regardless of how many, you should receive an additional $10,000 for a total of $20,000 in cancellation. That application is going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. Once the applications are filed, the department has estimated that the debt cancellation should come through within 4 to 6 weeks. So there's obviously the good question of what does cancellation mean for PSLF? And the simple answer is it doesn't. It certainly doesn't preclude you from receiving PSLF. You can put in your application for cancellation. If you have less than $10,000 in debt or less than $20,000 in debt and had received a Pell Grant, then there won't be any need for you to apply for PSLF because it will be wiped out under the cancellation plan. However, and this is a big however, do not rest on the cancellation plan, especially under the limited waiver. And this is where these two things intersect. As Ronnie explained in detail, to benefit from the limited waiver, you have to submit your PSLF application by October 31. Even if you think that you will receive full forgiveness under the debt cancellation plan, we implore you to still get that application in before October 31st, so you benefit from the limited waiver. And we, suggest that you do that, for a few different reasons. You just never know what's going to happen with, on the one hand, you don't know what's going to happen with the cancellation plan. We can discuss this later, but there are legal challenges being brought to the debt cancellation plan. And although we feel very strong in the arguments that Department of Ed will be making and that we will be making in order to defend against those claims, it is ultimately in charge of the courts and potentially the Supreme Court. So proceed under a dual track of pursuing both cancellation and PSLF at the same time. Likewise, if you're working towards PSLF and you have more than these amounts in debt, so it seems like cancellation will not deal with your entire debt load, and that's why you need PSLF, still go ahead and put in for cancellation, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if something's going to intervene that will prevent you from ultimately making 120 payments while working in a public service, working for a public service employer, excuse me. So for now, proceed under both steps. Submit your application for cancellation when it's available, and submit your application for PSLF before October 31. So a number of borrowers will receive automatic cancellation if for any reason you've had to submit a FAFSA form in the last 2 years, or if you are now on an income-driven repayment plan, which requires you to certify your income, you should receive automatic cancellation. We've been told that when that comes through, you'll receive an email from the Department of Education congratulating you on your automatic debt cancellation. But if there's any doubt, or if you don't receive an email like that, please go ahead and submit the form online that is going to be coming out in a few weeks. It's our understanding to be a very simple form under which you're just attesting to the fact that your income is below the limits that we discussed a few moments ago. You have until December 31, 2023 to apply, but don't wait, particularly because payments are going to resume in January. As you may have heard, as part of the debt cancellation announcement, President Biden announced that he was once again extending the COVID payment pause through the end of this year, and we are quite confident that this will be the last extension, meaning payments on your federal student loans will resume in January. So get that cancellation application now, particularly who are looking at, potentially wiping out the remainder of your balance if you're under that $10,000 and $20,000 threshold. It's quite a slow transition between slides, but wait, there's more. President Biden's debt cancellation announcement came with a number of components. The announcement that the department will be canceling $10,000 and $20,000 of loans certainly grabbed the headlines, but below the fold, there was a very, very important development that didn't gain quite as much attention, and that's that the president, the Department of Education and the president are proposing a new income-driven repayment plan. As Ronnie mentioned, there are several existing IDR plans to choose from that pin your monthly payment amount to your annual income. And they are good programs, but the administration is now proposing a much better program that will significantly reduce the amount of your monthly plan or monthly payment based on your income. We expect that plan will be available in mid-2023. If I was going to guess, it'll be July 1, 2023. So it is not available yet, but it is coming. And here's an example that you can see on the slide of what this would mean for someone earning $44,000 a year. It will, bring to a third the amount of their monthly payment. And so it will have a significant benefit. So please be on the lookout for that. Once we're aware of the precise terms of the plan and the effective date of it, we will certainly publicize that widely and work with ISTA and others to make sure everyone is aware of that. But be on the lookout, and when it comes in, give serious consideration about whether that is a plan for you, because it should reduce your monthly payments as you're continuing to work towards forgiveness under PSLF. With that, I'm going to bring Ronnie back on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. Really exciting stuff. And hopefully we'll have more to share around how folks can take advantage of President Biden's broader debt cancellation piece very, very soon. So as I mentioned again, and this is just to reiterate some really helpful links for folks. Again, NEA is here to ultimately help you all to drive you through this process. Again, every single NEA member has access to get free help for applying for public service loan forgiveness by going to our Savvy tool. And again, that is neamb.com/savvy. And you can use the Student Debt Navigator to either apply for public service loan forgiveness or get one-on-one help specifically with a student debt supporter by Savvy, who will assist you with any questions that you might have. And again, if you're not an NEA member, we encourage you to join us by going to nea.org/join. Other resources and FAQs are also available on the NEA website. If you visit the NEA.org website, you may notice that there is a ribbon on the left-hand side of the screen that leads to a bunch of student debt materials. But the short link for that is nea.org/student debt support with dashes in between. And so Emily Robinson is another success story that we had, who is a Georgia high school educator. She had $21,000 forgiven through PSLF. And in her quote, she said that she has a master's degree and she still couldn't figure out how to navigate around PSLF. She was getting rejected and she had no idea why, simply as that. But she found the Student Debt Navigator through the Savvy tool, and it turns out she was in the wrong type of repayment plan. And thanks to the limited waiver, she was credited all the payments that she had been making on the wrong repayment plan, plus the new payments that when she was making the correct type of payments. And thanks in part of that, in November this past year, she had received $20,000 in loan forgiveness because of that. So the Savvy tool does work, and we have great experts. That's why we partner with this organization to do this. And hopefully that will help a couple of you guys also as well on your pathway to loan forgiveness. So we'll go into an FAQ portion. We've been doing this for quite some time, where we've encountered a lot of common questions, encountering in conversations with our state affiliates, with members, and many different other folks who are in the public service profession. So I'll actually invite Jeff and Sophia to join me again for this part, and Sophia will moderate us through this next set of questions.
Okay, so our first question is, should I apply for the PSLF waiver if I haven't yet made 120 payments? And I'm passing this one to Jeff to start.
Yes, you absolutely should. Don't wait. That is the theme of this. If you apply now, you ensure that you're benefiting from the waiver. And if you don't know whether or not you stand to benefit for the waiver, that is just yet another reason to apply now. Because if you you may benefit and not even know it. You may have had a payment that was late, a payment that was for less than less than the total amount, several years ago, and you forgot about it, and you'll get that count. You'll get one more, you'll get one more, you'll get one more until you hit that goal of 120 payments. Moreover, we recommend that people periodically fill out the application and have your employer sign it to continually certify that you're working for a qualifying public employer, rather than saving it up for the end. And that way you make sure that you're on track and working towards that goal of reaching 120 payments. And once again, we have the information down here for how to apply using the PSLF help tool, and how to take advantage of your important member benefit, which is access to our student debt navigator powered through Savvy. And then the last note there was to upload your application materials through Mohila. I'd like also just to make one more plug, and that is that a recent tool has been made available on FSA's website called the Help Tool Ninja, is all you have to remember. You can Google Help Tool PSLF Help Tool Ninja, and it really will walk you through step by step how to complete the PSLF application. So you can have the PSLF Help Tool on one side of your screen, and the Ninja on the other, that will make sure that you are understanding each question that's asked of you as you walk through that process.
My apologies. It's a little finicky with me tonight. So our next question is, how can I find out the type of my student loans, and do I need to consolidate? And this is for Ronnie.
Thanks, Sophia. So yes, this is a simple one, and the easiest thing is to go to the studentaid.gov website and going in and logging in with your FSA ID. You'll go to studentaid.gov/aid summary. And again, you use that with your FSA ID. And there's a loan breakdown section where you will see the list of student loans that you have that you've taken out. And you can expand that list by clicking on View Loans and clicking on View Loan Details next to the arrow to that, and that will show you your loan type. And again, as a reminder, direct loans begin with the word direct in that listing. And if all your loans say direct, you do not need to consolidate, because those are the type of student loans that qualify for forgiveness. But if you have a federal family education loan that is indicated by FFEL, and that is FFEL, and if you have any loans that is listed in that way, you need to consolidate. If you have Perkins listed to it, those are Perkins loans. And those are also types of loans that you also need to consolidate. And again, it is a good reminder also to consolidate even your direct loans sometimes, because you can do that right now without losing PSLF credit. As I mentioned earlier, folks prior to the changes with the limited waiver, when they consolidated, their payment counts reset to 0, even if they had direct loans. Some folks have multiple types of direct loans, and you may have multiple payment counts because of that. So with that said, they might be on different timetables of when they're eligible for forgiveness. Might have one direct loan that says that has 80 payments, another one may have 90. Even for those folks, it might be a good idea for you to consolidate those loans together, even though they both are direct loans, because if you do that, it will combine the loans, of course, and then of course it'll be granted to you the highest number of payments. So it'll be granted to you in that situation, in that example I presented earlier, that you'll have 90 payments towards forgiveness. It will accrue to the larger number of the two direct loans that you have credit towards.
Okay, our next question for Jeff is, how do I consolidate my loans?
Okay, so consolidation. Consolidation is a lot more straightforward than it may seem. The thing to remember is that you will consolidate your loans through studentaid.gov. There is a page dedicated to explaining how to consolidate your loans. I'd be willing to bet that a number of folks on this call or on the Zoom have been contacted by private servicers who may have suggested that folks can consolidate their loans. We strongly recommend that you thank them for their time, hang up the phone, and go to studentaid.gov and look for the direct consolidation loan application. Private servicers may inadvertently or intentionally steer you into what they are calling consolidation, that is essentially putting them into private loans, and that is absolutely the last thing you want to do. You want to keep your federal loans federal to ensure that you're able to qualify for both PSLF and the debt cancellation plan. So as you can see here, you want to consolidate all of your loans. You need to consolidate Perkins and Fell loans into a direct consolidation loan in order to be eligible. You'll select Mohila as your servicer. It used to be Fed Loan Servicing. So if you are familiar with Fed Loan Servicing, number one, if they were your servicer, your loans should have been transferred to Mohila over the last few months, although that's still going on. Once you select your servicer as Mohila, you have to pick an income-driven repayment plan. The 4 that are here qualify. There's detailed and very user-friendly information on FSA's website on studentaid.gov describing the terms of those 4 different income-driven repayment plans. There's no fee for submitting your application. If you're talking to someone on the phone and they're suggesting that you need to pay something in order to consolidate, you're talking to a private servicer or some other lending institution. Thank them very much, hang up, and go to studentaid.gov because there should be no fee or no cost for doing this. Now, you may also receive some communication from, so there are two servicers who you may hear from at this point. One is Mohila, as we've already discussed, which now processes PSLF applications. The second is Aid Advantage, and the Department of Education is contracted with the Aid Advantage to help with the overwhelming number of consolidation applications that are coming in advance of the waiver. So if you hear from an Aid Advantage, it's kind of a stopgap, get your loans consolidated, and once they're consolidated, they'll be moved over to Mohila. It sounds complicated, but trust me, go to FSA's website, studentaid.gov, and there's really helpful information to just walk you right through it.
Okay, our next question is, does loan consolidation add existing interest to my principal balance? And Ronnie, if you could answer this one.
Sure. So the simple answer is unfortunately yes, but there's a caveat and a very important caveat to this. First and foremost, if you need to consolidate your loans, again, like I mentioned, only federal direct loans qualify for public service loan forgiveness. If you have a Fell loan or a Perkins loan, consolidation is the only way for your loans to be converted into a direct loan and to be eligible for forgiveness. Consolidation does, again, like I said, convert any outstanding interest to the principal balance, but this is something that needs to be done in the process because it is the only way for you to get forgiveness in the long run. So it is maybe tough to decide and tough pill to swallow immediately, but in the long run, this is the way that you'll get a pathway towards forgiveness. Yeah, that last part was just talking about how this is the only way to get towards that.
Okay, this is a pretty broadly asked question, so we're going to have Jeff answer. Do the years of public service have to be consecutive to count for PSLF?
No, and Ronnie touched on this earlier, but I'll just reiterate that it does not have to be consecutive. And in fact, the fact that we refer to this as years of public service is a bit of doesn't quite line up with the program. It's all about months. It's all about months of working in public service for a qualifying public service employer while making payments on your federal loans. You can make 5 payments here. Maybe you go into the private sector for a bit, you come out, you make 10 more payments, you go on maternity leave, you make 10 payments. It's fine. It's just adding 1 and 1 and 1 until you hit that goal of 120 payments.
Okay, we have seen this question come up in our Q&A for this session. So we are going to answer, do Parent Plus loans qualify for public service loan forgiveness? Ronnie?
So this is a pretty complicated question. So the short answer is no, but a borrower, AKA the parent, can consolidate them to qualify. So again, it seems like consolidation is a very common step that most folks might have to take, but the parent or the borrower with the only Parent Plus loans may consolidate them into the direct loan. So the student that's being benefited from those Parent Plus loans may not do that consolidation. The other caveat is that previous payments on Plus loans will not qualify for public service loan forgiveness. A borrower after consolidation of a Parent Plus loan will need to make 120 qualifying payments on the new direct consolidation loan post-consolidation. So that is a very important key. And then a borrower parent with their own direct loan and their own Parent Plus loan may consolidate these loans. You have to be able to consolidate the Parent Plus loan with another type of direct loan to complete the consolidation process. And also the consolidated loan will be credited with payments previously made on direct loans before the waiver expires, but not previous payments on the Parent Plus loan. So a really good example of this is actually a borrower with 85 qualifying payments on their direct loans and 15 payments on their Parent Plus loan would actually only be credited 85 qualifying payments.
Okay, this is another question we saw come up in this chat. Will I get taxed if I take advantage of public service loan forgiveness or the president's debt cancellation plan? Jeff?
The answer in order is no, and then yes. And this hit our desk a few weeks ago, as I'm sure that you've all heard about it a few weeks ago in Indiana. The great state of Indiana has announced that it will not conform to the definition of taxable income that is set forth in the Internal Revenue Code and is established by the American Rescue Plan, unfortunately. So Indiana is in the minority of states who have said that they will not conform, and they will in fact tax the debt cancellation plan, the $10,000/$20,000 amount. Now they will not be taxing PSLF. None of this is taxable on your federal taxes. PSLF will not be taxable on your Indiana state taxes. Debt cancellation will be. It could also be taxable depending on your county tax rates. However, we all just want to make the obvious point, but we'll make it loud. And that is that it's our understanding that at Indiana's tax rate, the $10,000 in cancellation will be taxed. The increased tax liability will be about $323. There may be a little bit more on top of that for county. So once again, it's unfortunate that they're taxing this amount, but the benefit so far outweighs that increased tax liability. And we hope it won't be a bar to keep you from applying for that debt cancellation.
Okay, we have quite a few audience questions. Ronnie, Jeff, do you want me to just pick out ones and have you answer them on the spot?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, actually, I've been answering some as we've gone, and I just see one on top. And while you're looking through them, Sophia, I'll take this top one, and it says, I'm sorry, I don't quite see the name. The screen's a little fuzzy. I've tried many times, including last year, and they just keep rejecting me. Consolidate, so no. Loan, I assume this means loans from before 1997, so no, etc. I'm very sorry to hear that someone is going through these repeated rejections, but I hope it will not dissuade you. If it's clear that you've been working for a qualifying public employer while making payments on qualifying loans, on federal loans, please continue, please persist. If you had to consolidate, now's the time to consolidate and make sure you do so before the limited waiver so that it retroactively gives you credit for all those payments from before you consolidated your loans. Now I see that you talk about loans from before 1997, and that's one of the reasons this question jumped out at me. Anything from loan payments from before 2007, not 97, but 2007 don't count towards those 120 payments. But I was wondering whether this 1997 reference is because you were actually applying for teacher loan forgiveness rather than public student loan forgiveness, because under teacher loan forgiveness, you can't have, and I think it's 97, and Ronnie can correct me if I'm wrong, if it's loans that originated before 1998, are not eligible for teacher loan forgiveness. But PSLF is uses a different yardstick. It doesn't matter how old the loan is. When it was dispersed, all payments from October 2007 and forward should qualify. So the short answer there is I'm sorry that that's going on. Please apply again. Please apply before the waiver. If you hadn't submitted a consolidation application, do that too. Do those two things before the end of October, and I hope you'll then find yourself in good shape working towards loan forgiveness.
And I'll also add, and if you're having repeated experiences of being rejected for whatever reason, whether it's PSLF or your consolidation application, again, that's what our friends at Savvy are here for you as an NEA member. Take and reap the benefit of that free help that you can get from our folks over there, because those are the experts that can help dissect what is exactly wrong. Or if you're being misled in any situation too as well by your servicer or being mistold any information. Your loan aid should not be rejecting your consolidation application. That's not how it operates. And Jeff is correct in terms of the 97-98 rule in terms of teacher loan forgiveness. Loan age does not matter for public service loan forgiveness. What matters is when the payments were made, which has to be after October 2007, and also years of service after that date as well. And they must be direct loans to qualify for forgiveness in the end, I mean.
Okay, so I'm going to start with some questions about applying for PSLF, and Ronnie, I'll have you answer these because Jeff is working on answering some directly. The first one is, so I don't have to apply for PSLF if I'm already on an income-driven repayment plan.
So it depends how often you apply for PSLF. So our best advice is that if you haven't applied for public service loan forgiveness after the October 2021 date, so you applied a year ago, maybe a couple of years before that, apply now again. Applying does not necessarily mean you're getting forgiveness immediately. It just means that you're intending to pursue PSLF, right? But the thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, you may have been off track at some point. Maybe you weren't enrolled in a right type of repayment plan. Maybe you've been making payments towards a federal student loan that wasn't a direct loan. Again, under the previous rules, that would not contribute towards the 120 payments required to qualify for PSLF. So right now, it's important to apply because you can reap the benefits of what the limited waiver has. So if you did apply for a couple of years ago and you're looking and intending to pursue PSLF, it's still beneficial now to apply again, because you again may have things that you've done in the past or misled in the past that may not qualify for that 120. And this is your chance to get that credit right now. There may be some folks that, could get forgiveness immediately because they weren't on track previously. And now they're able to get those benefits from those ineligible payments, or those ineligible years, I should say, or months. And now coupled with what you have done correctly, now you may qualify for immediate forgiveness. So this could either accelerate your timeline of getting forgiveness or make sure that you're on track when you hit year 10, particularly.
Okay, so on a related note, our next question is, how often do I have to apply for PSLF?
So some folks apply annually, some folks apply every couple of years. It definitely varies in terms of the individual. Our best advice is to apply annually, so you're constantly recertifying your employment and getting progress. You don't get an updated payment count on PSLF until you apply again. So there's no way to track your payment progress towards PSLF without applying. So applying annually is usually the easiest way to get a consistent idea about how far away you are and whether you're on the correct pathway. But particularly, again, for the limited waiver, you have to apply before the end of October 31st to reap the benefits of this expanded requirements or expanded provisions that it's allowing.
Okay, this is our last application specific question, and it's, where can I find my employer ID to get verified?
So employer ID, I'm assuming, is your EIN ID that they're referring to in your application. This can be easily found on your W-2 from your tax filings every single year. That is the most common place. But honestly, if you cannot find it and locate it from then, when in doubt, Google is actually a really good way to find your employer identification number. So EIN, employer identification number, that is what you'll need to verify your employment and show that you are working for a verified public service employer.
Okay, we have quite a few questions about the COVID payment pause and what those monthly payments mean. Specifically, there's a question about reimbursement and whether or not the reimbursement is getting added back to the balance of your loan. Jeff?
Reimbursement. Now, I'm not sure I'm following exactly what that might mean. Is that related to if you request a refund of payments made during the payment pause, is my assumption, and I think Sophia is agreeing with me. Yes, if you continue to voluntarily make payments on your federal loans after the COVID payment pause began, which was effective March 13, 2020, and you decided, well, I'm gonna, I have the money, I'm gonna continue to make my payments despite the fact that I'm under this administrative forbearance issued by the Department of Education, you can now request a full refund of all payments made on your federal loans from that date through the present. And that amount should be processed within, if it's my understanding, I looked into this the other day, that the servicers are giving 2 to 3 months before you will obtain that refund. So you can get that refund. And then once you receive it, you can then apply for putting your application for debt cancellation under the $10,000, $20,000 that the Biden administration announced in August. and or you can apply for public service loan forgiveness of that amount. So that debt, the refunded amount will go back on your balance, but then you can use that in order to receive the benefits of cancellation and loan forgiveness. So it's a careful calculus of whether it's worthwhile to do that. But if you can get it canceled, then you may as well get the money back in your pocket and have that amount forgiven.
Okay, and relatedly, we have somebody who did not make payments during the COVID payment pause, and they're asking that when they reach their 10 years of employment, will they still have to make payments for a few more years?
No, I mean, you'll get full credit for the months, the intervening months between March 2020 and the end of the payment pause, which again is slated to end on December 31, 2022. So I always say I'm going to calculate this amount before we talk to folks. For those 32 months or whatever that will total at that point, you will get credit for 32 payments towards the 120. You'll not have to continue essentially make more than 120 payments. You'll receive credit as if you had made a full payment.
Okay, we have 3 consolidation questions. The first is, should we consolidate before applying or does it not matter?
It does matter, so please consolidate beforehand. And again, you do not wait until the consolidation is complete to apply. It can be a pending application for consolidation, but you should consolidate before applying for public service loan forgiveness. This is essential for those who have, again, FFEL and Perkins loans, because again, consolidation is the only way you can consolidate into a direct loan. And then for folks who are looking to couple the direct loans together to have one payment count, you will want to consolidate as well.
And our next one is, I consolidated with Navient. Where do I start?
So again, the easiest way, if you have already done the consolidation process, then you have a federal direct loan. Then you'll again visit the studentaid.gov website /PSLF, and you will use the help tool to apply for public service loan forgiveness, or use the Savvy tool with the NEA member benefits page.
Okay, and our last consolidation question is, what do I do if I've already used a private company and paid a fee to consolidate? Should I get out of this, and how do I?
So the mystery, I think, is, and unfortunately, I don't think we have enough total answers to, or enough information to answer your question. If they helped you consolidate, hopefully it's not to refinance your student loans with a private servicer or a private bank, because in that situation, your loans are no longer a federal student loan. It is with a private bank and being held by a private bank. And in that situation, you do not qualify for public service loan forgiveness anymore, which is really unfortunate and something that we continue to advocate and work on. If they did help you consolidate, and it is a consolidated direct loan that's still being managed by the federal government, then you can still have public service loan forgiveness and still apply for it. So again, this is unfortunately because of a mix of terms of consolidation. Again, some services like to use it for refinancing and turning into a private loan, where others are actually trying to consolidate your loans into a direct loan by the federal government program. So unfortunately, I don't think we have the way to really navigate that for you, but those are the 2 ways that can go and branch off to.
That's great. We have a question about teacher loan forgiveness. They said, I have not applied in the past, even though I qualified, because I knew it would keep me from qualifying for PSLF. Should I apply for both programs now?
We do not recommend that, predominantly because teacher loan forgiveness is an older program and does not provide forgiveness amounts that have really reflected to the cost of college and obviously the accruing interest that folks have been experiencing over the years. To keep folks up to speed, teacher loan forgiveness provides up to $17,500 in loan forgiveness, which is it's substantial enough to help a little bit, but of course not to cancel out your full balances. And those who can get the maximum amount must be either special educators or work in math or a STEM field in terms of their education for students in secondary education. So a lot of K-6 educators don't actually qualify for that full forgiveness amount because of how it's reserved and structured. So with that said, especially with the governing timelines or what we're doing with the limited waiver right now, we don't particularly recommend folks to pursue that. I'd hate for a scenario for someone like you to apply for teacher loan forgiveness, get the forgiveness or teacher loan forgiveness after October 31st when the waiver expires, and then you apply for PSLF. and then you lose the 5 years that you use for teacher loan forgiveness. So in this situation, public service loan forgiveness is king because it forgives your remaining balance at the end of 10 years of service. And also we have Biden's cancellation opportunity that's available to you hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So I would highly focus on PSLF and the broad cancellation announcement that the president has focused on the past couple of days.
Okay, that's a great lead in to our next question is, do I have to apply for PSLF right now to be eligible for the Biden debt relief?
Jeff, did you want to take this one?
Sure. Yes. The answer is. Sorry. Can you give me the question one more time?
Do I have to apply for PSLF to get the Biden debt relief?
No, not at all. These are completely separate programs. Many more people will qualify for the debt cancellation program than PSLF, and one is not required for the other, and vice versa.
Okay, and I think we should try to clarify the application process and what it means to be in a PSLF plan versus applying for PSLF. So, for example, we have a question that says, I have applied for PSLF. Do I need to complete a separate application requesting forgiveness for making 120 payments, but I have not yet made those?
Yes, so I mentioned, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, please go ahead, Lonnie.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, when you apply for PSLF, that is to certify your employment, right? The reason why you apply for PSLF multiple times is that they're trying to verify to make sure that you're still working for your public service employer. That's why you apply for public service loan forgiveness either every single year, or you submit multiple forms after a couple of years of service. That's how they verify whether you're making those qualified payments during that time of service and vice versa. So that is the intent, and that is you submitting your form. And then hopefully then your last form is when you're submitting for 120 payments after you made 120 payments and provided 10 years of service. That is why we encourage folks to apply constantly. When we say apply, does not mean you're applying immediately for forgiveness. It is applying to verify your employment, to verify whether you're on track or not, doing the correct things, and to get an updated payment count. But applying again does not mean you have to apply to previous dates that you've already sent in for. Say you've already applied, for the first 3 years of your employment with working at your school district. You won't need to submit another form for that. You just need to continue to verify your future employment in your most recent employment, if that makes sense.
And can I add on to that, just by way of example? We have a question from, I think it's KDC, someone who worked in Ohio for a number of years at a private school and then came to Indiana and worked for a few more years, was rejected, and is now seeing that they have a payment count of 112. What does that mean? Well, what that means is it's wonderful news. Again, it's kind of a misnomer to say that you were rejected. A rejection is just saying you're not yet eligible, but you are working towards it in general. So while at the time you were rejected, you just didn't reach 120 payments. But right now, the fact that you've received credit for 112 payments, that means that in 8 months, you'll hit that 120 payment amount, payment threshold, and the remainder of your balance should be forgiven. So it's fantastic.
Okay, I think we are running low on time, so we are going to wrap up. But any unanswered questions, we will address and send an email to cover them.
Sorry, Sophia, we can probably take 1 or 2 more left if you want to go do that. But yes, as she mentioned, we'll cover anything that we don't answer via email.
Okay. Let's see a quick answer one. I have a direct loan taken out to help a child pay for school. I'm an educator and my loan debt is about $2,000 now. Will some form of forgiveness be available to me?
So the easiest thing, so if you have a direct loan for a loan for your dependent, that's more than likely a Parent Plus loan. And we covered it earlier again, that there's a difficult route about how you can manage forgiveness for that for PSLF. And it's a really hard one to navigate. But luckily, Parent Plus loans are eligible for forgiveness under the Biden cancellation plan of $10,000 or $20,000. So we believe that'll probably be the best situation for you to take forward. And I also saw a question earlier about asking when we can take advantage of the Biden cancellation proposal. On that topic, we hope to see an application in the coming weeks. The Department of Education has told us that October is when they'll unveil the application for that, and it is a much shorter application than what PSLF is. But hopefully we will see that soon, and we'll be sure to share that information out to our members as soon as it goes live.
Okay, and then we have another one about the refund. It says, should I ask for a refund for all the payments I've paid to Navient during the freeze before consolidating? Or should I go ahead and consolidate? I'm under $10,000 now, but want to maximize my forgiveness.
Jeff, you want to continue on this since you tackled it earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that it's clear that you have federal loans, and that's a key here, that many servicers will service both federal loans and private loans. So I just always want to make sure that we're going back to that first principle, that we're only talking about federal loans here. If you were making payments voluntarily during the payment pause and believe that your balance will be either canceled under the debt cancellation plan or forgiven under PSLF, then you may want to seek a refund. Now, we can't tell you that there's no risk with respect to the debt cancellation plan. As I alluded to earlier, there are lawsuits out there challenging it. And while we feel good about our arguments, you know, a court may see otherwise and cancel the debt cancellation plan and bring the administration kind of back to square one on that. If that's the case and you've sought a refund, then you would owe that money once again. However, if you're working towards PSLF and you're on an income-driven repayment plan anyway, then the increase to your balance should not result in an increase to your monthly payment, which is tracked just to your income. And so once you hit that 120 payment mark, the remaining balance would be forgiven. So there's a very good chance that a refund is the proper course to take, but you'll have to kind of run those numbers for yourself and make sure that does in fact make sense, and particularly if you're working towards PSLF.
And then for our last question, there is one I really want to address. So one is, I'm currently getting my master's, so all my loans are considered as in school, therefore I cannot apply. So that is because your loans are an in-school deferment. So at any point, any of you decide to go back to school, whether for your doctoral degree or for your master's degree, it is an automatic process that your student loan servicer will put any previous student loans for your undergraduate degree or any other previous loans used to attain higher education into in-school deferment, so that you don't have to pay for student loans. But if you're not full-time as a student and you're participating and still working with your school district and still working full-time while pursuing your education, your master's, your doctoral degree, you can request a leave in-school deferment with your servicer. Because again, you cannot accrue progress towards public service loan forgiveness, of course, if you're not making any payments, and in-school deferment prevents you from making any payments. So for this specific individual, our suggestion is if you're still working as an educator and not pursuing school full-time, you can request a leave in-school deferment so that you can continue contributing towards PSLF, and so that your loans for your undergraduate career will also get forgiven. But do note that if you do have loans that you've taken out for your master's, those start on a separate payment count than the ones on your undergraduate loans. And those payment counts obviously will not start until you complete your master's degree afterwards. So you will need to work through PSLF a different aspect or through a different branch after that. Okay. Well, thank you so much for everybody for joining us. I hope everybody found some great information out of this, and I hope that we'll see much more success stories out of folks out of Indiana over the next couple of weeks before the limited waiver ends. And if not, I hope many of you will be able to take advantage of the Biden cancellation proposal that is happening soon. Jeff, Sophia, any final thoughts before we close off today?
Yeah, I think my final thought on this is that there's been so much, just a flood of information about PSLF, about the waiver, about debt cancellation, about other plans. I mean, we've tried to touch on that tonight to bring some semblance of order to it, but there really is just like a fire hose of information out there. And what I would anyone who's feeling overwhelmed, I would really just encourage you to just kind of take a breath, maybe take some time on a Saturday morning or something when you can just devote just a little bit of time to this, without all that you have to do all day in the classroom and with your own families and things, and go to studentaid.gov and just start walking through the process. And I think you'll be surprised that it's not quite as complicated as it seems. We have a lot of wonderful and good nuanced questions this evening that are important to understand. But once you go to studentaid.gov, you go to that PSLF help tool and start walking through the process. I hope that it'll make your realize that you can do this, that you can get this done, and just please don't wait, because what you don't want is wait a few months, then sit down and apply and realize that you would have received just a huge benefit had you met the October 31 deadline to benefit from the limited waiver. So carve out a little bit of time if you can. I know that's easier said than done, and you got this. You can do this. And as Ronnie has continually reminded us, go to use the Savvy tool if that will help. Reach out to reach out to the folks at Savvy, and you can do this and get your application in.
Sophia?
That is it. I think just clarifying for everybody that applying for PSLF is not necessarily applying for it. You should be certifying your employment through an application on the PSLF help tool as often as you can to certify that you are working with a qualified employer.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody again for joining us. And thank you again to ISDA for having us. Just as a reminder, this has been recorded and we will provide the slides after the fact and the recording in case you missed anything or you want to backtrack anything. And again, we will go through any Q&A questions that we did not get to answer live, and we will respond to those via email as well. And we'll work with ISDA to make sure that each individual will be able to get those answers. So thank you so much again, and hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care.